The great arena of the Velar Empire was filled with creatures from 100 different worlds. The stone seats rose high into the sky like a mountain made by hands. Thousands of aliens sat in those seats waiting to see blood. They came every 100 years for this event. The grand tournament would decide which warriors would guard the royal family. For the next century, Princess Lily stood on the crystal balcony above the arena floor. Her skin was pale blue and her eyes were large and silver like two moons. She was the only daughter of Emperor William, ruler of 12-star systems. Today she would watch warriors fight for the honor of protecting her. She did not enjoy these tournaments. The violence made her stomach turn, but her father insisted she attend. A princess must know the strength of those who guard her. He always said the arena floor was covered with red sand. Warriors from many species stood in groups preparing for battle. Lily saw the Scalari first. They were tall, reptile creatures with green scales and yellow eyes. Each one stood 8 ft tall and carried weapons made of black metal. They had won the last 3 tournaments. Near them stood the Bravari. These aliens had 4 arms and skin like gray stone. They were slow but almost impossible to hurt. Their bones were dense like iron. A Bravari warrior named Drake was the favorite to win this year. He had killed over 200 enemies in his long life. Lily looked at the other groups. She saw insect creatures with sharp claws. She saw giants from ice worlds with white fur. She saw thin beings made of living metal. All of them looked dangerous. All of them looked ready to kill. Then her eyes found something strange. In the corner of the arena stood a single figure. He was not tall. He had no scales, no claws, no armor on his skin. He wore simple gray clothes and stood with his hands in his pockets. He looked almost bored. Lily leaned forward. She had never seen a creature like this before. Her assistant, a small floating robot, noticed her interest. It scanned the figure and spoke in a soft voice. That is a human princess. Species origin, planet Earth soul system. They joined the galactic community only 50 years ago. Very young species, no notable physical abilities recorded. Lily frowned. Why is he here? He looks like he could not survive 5 seconds against a Scalari. The robot processed the question. Unknown princess. Perhaps he does not understand the danger. Down on the arena floor, the human stretched his arms above his head. He yawned. Other warriors stared at him with confusion or anger. A young Scalari walked over to him and made a threatening sound. The human just smiled and said something. The Scalari's eyes went wide and it walked away quickly. Lily felt something cold in her chest. She did not know why. Emperor William arrived on the balcony. He was tall for a Velari with deep blue skin and a crown of white crystal on his head. He sat on his throne and raised one hand. Crowd went silent. Let the tournament begin, he announced. The first matches were brutal. Warriors fought in pairs on the red sand. Blood spilled, bones broke. The crowd cheered for violence, and they received it. Lily watched the Scalari tear through their opponents. With ease, she watched Drake the Bravari crush a metal warrior with his 4 hands. Then it was the human's turn. His opponent was a creature called a Vorax. It looked like a wolf that walked on 2 legs. It had black fur and claws that could cut through steel. The Vorax was fast and loved to kill. It had already won 2 matches today. The crowd laughed When they saw the human walk onto the sand, he was so small compared to the Vorax. He carried no weapon, he wore no armor. This will be quick, someone. The crowd said. The bell rang, the match began. The Vorax attacked immediately. It ran at the human with incredible speed, claws reaching for his throat. The crowd expected to see blood. Instead, they saw something impossible. The human moved to the side at the last moment. His hand shot out and grabbed the Vorax by its arm, then he twisted. The sound of breaking bone echoed through the arena. The Vorax screamed. But the human was not finished. He moved behind the creature and wrapped his arm around its neck. The Vorax struggled. It clawed at his arms, cutting deep into his flesh. Blood ran down the human's skin. He did not let go. 10 seconds passed. The Vorax's movements became weak. 20 seconds. The creature's eyes closed. 30 seconds. The Vorax fell to the ground, unconscious. The human stood over his fallen enemy. Blood dripped from the wounds on his arms. He did not seem to notice. He simply turned and walked back to his corner. The arena was completely silent. Lily realized she had stopped breathing. She forced air into her lungs and gripped the edge of the balcony. Her hands were shaking. The tournament continued. The human fought again and again and again. Each time his opponents were stronger. Each time he found a way to win. He did not use strength because he had less strength than his enemies. He did not use speed because others were faster. He used something else, something Lily could not name. He found weaknesses that no one else could see. He took damage that should have stopped him and kept fighting. When a Bravari broke 3 of his ribs, he wrapped his chest with torn cloth and returned to fight the next match. When a Scalari cut open his leg, he tied it with rope and stood on his other leg. By the end of the day, the human named Marcus had won 7 matches. He was covered in wounds. He was bleeding from a dozen places, and he was smiling. The crowd was no longer laughing. They were afraid. Princess Lily turned to look at her father. Emperor William was leaning forward on his throne. His silver eyes were bright with interest. She knew that look. She had seen it when he found a new weapon or a valuable resource. He was looking at the human like he had found treasure. Lily felt the cold feeling in her chest grow stronger. She suddenly understood what was about to happen. Her father would choose this creature. This human would become her guardian. The thought filled her with terror. She needed to stop this. She needed to make her father understand. Humans were not like other species. She had read the reports. She knew what they were capable of, and she knew that having one so close to her was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. The palace halls were empty at this hour. Most servants had gone to sleep. Guards stood at their posts like statues, watching nothing but Princess Lily was not sleeping. She walked quickly through the corridors, her silver robes flowing behind her like water. She had spent the last 3 hours reading everything she could find about humans. Every report, every study, every warning from species that had encountered them. With each word she read, her fear grew deeper. Now she stood before the great doors of her father's private chambers. No one entered these rooms without permission. The punishment for disturbing the emperor was severe. Lily did not care. Some things were more important than rules. She pushed open the doors and walked inside. Emperor William sat at his desk looking at holographic images of the tournament. The human's face floated in blue light. Before him, he did not seem surprised. To see his daughter, I expected you. Earlier, he said calmly. Lily did not waste time with greetings, not him. She said, her voice was strong but her hands were trembling. Father, please. Anyone but the human William turned to. Face her, his expression was patient, like a teacher waiting for a student to explain their mistake. You watched the tournament today. You saw what he did to warriors twice his size. You saw him defeat Commander Drake, the greatest Bravari fighter in 300 years. That is exactly why I am begging you. Lily moved closer to the desk. Father, you do not understand what humans are. They are not like us. They are not like any species in the galaxy. The Emperor raised one eyebrow. Explain. Lily took a deep breath. She had prepared for this. She had memorized the facts, the numbers, the terrible history of the human species. Humans evolved on a death world. She began. Earth is one of the most dangerous planets ever discovered. It has extreme weather, poisonous plants, deadly animals, and natural disasters that kill millions. Most species would die on Earth within days. Humans survived there for hundreds of thousands of years. William nodded. Slowly, I have read this. It explains their physical toughness. It is more than toughness, Father. Lily's voice grew urgent. They did not just survive on their death world, they conquered it. They hunted the largest predators for sport. They climbed the highest mountains because they wanted to see the view. They explored the deepest oceans just to know what was there. They have no natural weapons, no claws, no fangs, no armor, so they made weapons. They made tools. They made machines that could destroy cities. She paused, gathering her thoughts. But that is not the worst part. The worst part is what they do to each other. Emperor William's eyes narrowed. Continue. Humans fight wars against their own species constantly. Not for food, not for territory, not even for survival. Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. They fight for ideas. They call it ideology. They will kill millions of their own kind over abstract concepts like freedom or honor or revenge. She reached into her robe and pulled out a small data device. She placed it on the desk. Holographic images appeared in the air. Images of human wars, cities burning, weapons that split atoms, ships that carried death across oceans. They invented weapons that could destroy their entire planet. Lily said, and they did this while fighting each other. They pointed these weapons at their own cities. They came within minutes of ending their own species multiple times. William studied the images. His face showed no emotion. And still they survived, he said quietly. That is what terrifies me. Lily deactivated the device. Other species fight until victory seems impossible. Then they surrender. They accept defeat to preserve their lives. Humans do not do this. They have a concept that no other species understands. They call it spite. She spoke the human word carefully, as if it might burn her tongue. Spite means they will suffer any pain, any loss, any destruction, just to make sure their enemy suffers more. They do not fight to win. They fight to make the other side lose, even if it costs them everything. Emperor William was silent for a long moment. Lily felt hope rise in her chest. Perhaps he understood. Perhaps he would choose a different guardian. Then her father smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who had found perfect prey. My daughter, he said slowly, you have just Describe the perfect guardian, lilies. Hope died instantly. Father, know you. Cannot I can, William interrupted. And I will think about what you have told me, Lily. A creature that never surrenders. A creature that will fight beyond all reason, a creature that will burn itself to ashes just to protect what it values. He stood from his desk and walked to the window. The stars shone cold and distant. Outside, if that creature values your life, what could possibly threaten you? But how can we trust him? Lily demanded. How do we know he will not turn that violence against us? We do not need him to be trustworthy, William replied. We need him to be loyal, and humans, despite their violence, are extremely loyal. Their history is full of stories about soldiers dying for their leaders, parents sacrificing themselves for children, friends walking into certain death for each other. He turned back to face her. Artem self-parents sacrificing themselves. Once a human decides to protect something, they will protect it with everything they have. Everything. Lily felt tears forming in her eyes. She hated crying. It made her feel weak, but she could not stop the fear that was flooding through her body. Father, please, I'm afraid of him. Emperor William walked to his daughter. He placed one hand on her shoulder. His touch was gentle, but his words were hard. Good, he said, you should be afraid. Everyone should be afraid of humans. That fear is what will keep you safe. He smiled again. And this time it was almost warm, because your enemies will fear him even more. Lily looked into her father's silver eyes. She saw certainty there. His decision was made. Nothing she could say would change his mind. Tomorrow the human called Marcus would become her guardian, and Princess Lily of the Velar Empire would have to live with a monster at her side. She did not sleep that night. She lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling, imagining those cold human eyes watching her from the shadows. She had never felt so alone. Marcus accepted the position of royal guardian with a handshake. No ceremony, no kneeling, no flowery words of loyalty. He simply walked into the throne room, listened to Emperor William explain the job, and extended his hand. The emperor stared at the hand for a moment. His advisors whispered nervously. Physical contact between species was unusual in the Velar Empire, but William was curious. He reached out and gripped the human's hand. Marcus squeezed hard. William and Unk and GT's eyes went wide. Pain flashed across his face before he could hide it. When Marcus released him, the emperor shook his hand slightly, as if checking that his fingers still worked. Human seal promises with grip strength. Marcus explained calmly. It shows we are serious. The stronger the grip, the more we mean it. I see, William said. His voice was careful. Marcus looked directly into the emperor and Unk and GT's eyes. It tells you that I will die before I let anything happen to your daughter. From that day forward, Princess Lily had a shadow. Marcus was always there. When she woke up, he was standing outside her door. When she ate breakfast, he stood in the corner of the dining room. When she walked through the gardens, he followed 10 steps behind. He never spoke unless spoken to. He never smiled. He just watched. Lily noticed how others reacted to him. Palace guards, warriors who had served for decades, stepped aside when Marcus approached. They would not meet his eyes. Servants dropped dishes and forgot their duties when he entered a room. Even the emperors wore beasts, giant creatures bred to feel no fear. whimpered and ran away when Marcus came. Near, she asked her assistant about this. One day, humans produce certain chemicals in their bodies, the robot explained, other creatures can sense. These chemicals, they signal danger. It is a survival warning from deep in there. Biology, so every creature in the galaxy is naturally afraid of humans. It appears so, princess, even species that have never met a human before, their bodies know to be afraid. This knowledge did not comfort Lily, it only made her more nervous. Weeks passed. Lily tried to ignore her guardian, but it was impossible. He was always there, silent and watching. She began to feel like a prisoner in her own palace. One evening she could not sleep. Her mind was too full of worry. She decided to walk to the observation deck, a place where she could see the stars and find some peace. When she arrived, someone was already there. Marcus stood at the window, looking out at the darkness of space. He did not turn when she entered. He simply said, could not sleep either. Lily almost left, but something stopped her. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was exhaustion from being afraid all the time. She walked forward and stood a few feet away from him. Which star are you looking at? She asked. Marcus pointed at a small yellow dot barely visible among millions of others. That one, it is called Sol. My home system, 12,000 light years away. Lily looked at the tiny light. It seemed so ordinary, so small. Do you miss it? Every day. Marcus' voice was soft, different from his usual cold tone. I think about my home all the time. The blue sky, the green trees, the smell of rain on dirt. Earth is not a beautiful planet by galactic standards, but it is my planet. Lily frowned. This was not what she expected. She expected a warrior, a killer, not someone who missed the smell of rain. Why did you leave? She asked. If you love your home so much, why come here? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words were heavy. I have a sister. Her name is Emma. She is 14 years old. He paused. Earth is poor. We are new to the galaxy. We have nothing to trade. Most humans struggle to survive. When I was young, we often went hungry. Emma was always sick because we could not afford medicine. Lily listened. Her fear was slowly being replaced by something else. Something she could not name. The galactic military pays well, Marcus continued. When I signed up for the tournament, they gave me a bonus. Enough money to feed my family for 5 years. Enough for Emma to go to school. Enough for medicine when she needs it. He finally turned to look at Lily. His eyes, which she had thought were cold, now looked sad. I sold myself so my sister could have a better life. You sold yourself. Humans do that. Marcus shrugged slightly. We endure. We sacrifice. We carry heavy things so the people we love do not have to. He turned back to the window. I know you are afraid of me, princess. Everyone is afraid of me. I am used to it. Lily felt something shift inside her chest. Shame. I read reports about your species, she admitted. About your wars, your violence, your weapons. All true. Marcus nodded. We are violent. We are dangerous. We have done terrible things to each other. He paused, but those same reports probably mentioned something else too. Something humans are famous for. What? We protect things. Marcus faced her. Again, his expression was serious but gentle. Everything that makes me dangerous, my endurance, my aggression, my refusal to give up, I can turn it toward keeping you safe, not Because your father commands it, because protecting others is what humans do. It is why we survived our death world. It is why we survived each other. We protect the things we care about. No matter the cost. Lily looked at this human, this creature she had feared so deeply. She saw the scars on his arms. From the tournament, she saw the tiredness in his eyes. She saw a person who carried heavy burdens so his little sister could smile. I do not know if I can stop being afraid of you, she said. Honestly, Marcus almost smiled. Almost, that is okay, princess. You do not need to trust me yet, just give me time. I will show you what I am through. My actions, not my words. He walked past her toward the door, returning to his guard position. Marcus, Lily called out. He stopped. Thank you for telling me about Emma. This time Marcus did smile. Just a small one, just for a second. Good night, princess. He left. Lily stood alone on the observation deck, looking at the tiny yellow star called Sol. She thought about a 14-year-old girl named Emma somewhere in that distant light, going to school because her brother had sold his future. For the first time, Lily felt something other than fear. She felt respect. The attack came 3 months after Marcus became royal guardian. It was the middle of the night. The palace was quiet. Most of the guards were at their posts, bored and sleepy. Princess Lily was in her chambers, reading a book about human history. She had started reading such books often now. Understanding Marcus had become important to her. Marcus was off duty for the first time in weeks. He was in his small room, 4 levels below the princess's chambers. He was looking at a photograph of his sister Emma. She had sent it through a communication beam. That morning, she was smiling in the picture, wearing her school uniform. Marcus had almost smiled back. Then the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed through every corridor. Computer voice announced the worst possible words: security breach, armed hostiles in the palace. This is not a drill. Marcus was moving before the message finished. He did not grab weapons. He did not grab armor. He simply ran. In the security center, officers watched in horror as 40 Scalari warriors moved through the palace. They wore black armor and carried energy weapons. They killed everyone they met. Guards fell, servants fell. Nothing could stop them. How did they get inside? Someone shouted, stolen security codes. Another officer replied, someone betrayed us. On the screens, they could see the Scolari moving in one direction toward the royal chambers, toward the princess. They want Lily, the head of security, whispered. This is an assassination. Marcus ran through corridors filled with smoke and fire. He heard screams. He heard weapons firing. He heard the heavy footsteps of Scolari soldiers. He ignored all of it. Only one thing mattered: getting to Lily. A Scolari stepped around a corner. Directly in front of him, the reptile was huge, easily 8 ft tall. It raised its weapon. Marcus did not slow down. He crashed into the Scalari before it could fire. His hands found the creature's throat. In 3 seconds, the Scolari was on the ground, unconscious. Marcus kept running. 2 more Scalari appeared. They fired their weapons. Bright energy blasts flew through the air. One hit Marcus in the shoulder. Pain exploded through his body. He felt his flesh burn. He kept running. He grabbed the first Scolari by its arm and swung it into the second. They crashed together and fell. Marcus stomped on one's head. It stopped moving. The other Tried to stand. Marcus kicked it in the chest, bones cracked, it stopped moving. 2. Marcus looked at his shoulder. The wound was bad. He could see muscle and bone. Blood ran down his arm in rivers. He kept running. 4 levels stairs. Corridors, more enemies. Marcus moved through them like a storm. He had no weapons, so he used his hands. He used his elbows. He used his teeth when he had to. Every Scalari that tried to stop him paid with blood. Later, when they studied the security recordings, the palace officials counted the bodies. 11 Scalari warriors fell to the human in 6 minutes. 11 armored soldiers trained killers dead or broken by a single human with no weapons. The officials decided to classify those recordings at the highest level. Some things were too terrible for people to see. Marcus reached the door to Lily's chambers. It was locked. Emergency protocols had sealed it to protect her. There was no time to wait. Marcus placed his hands on the door. It was reinforced steel, designed to survive explosions. He took a deep breath, then he pushed. His muscles screamed. His wounds tore open wider. Blood poured from his shoulder, his leg, cuts on his face and chest. The door began to bend. Pain was just a message, Marcus told himself. Message he could ignore. The door broke. Metal screamed and twisted. Marcus pushed through the gap he had created. Lily was standing in the center of her room holding a small energy weapon. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were wide with fear when she saw Marcus covered in blood and standing in the ruins of her door. She almost screamed. Then she saw his face. She saw the determination there, the absolute refusal to let anything hurt her. Stay behind me, Marcus said. His voice was calm despite everything. Lily moved behind him. She did not argue. She did not question. She trusted him. The remaining assassins arrived minutes later. They had fought through every defense to reach this room. 29 Scalari warriors, the survivors of the original 40. They surrounded the broken door. Marcus stood in the opening. 1 human, 29 killers. The first Scalari attacked. Marcus broke its arm and threw it back into the others. The second attacked. Marcus caught its weapon and used it to stab the third. Bodies began to pile up in the doorway. But there were too many. They kept coming. They could not all attack at once because the doorway was narrow, so they took turns. Fresh warriors replaced the fallen. They cut Marcus again and again. His leg, his stomach, his back. He did not move from his position. Blood pulled around his feet. His vision blurred. His body begged him to fall. Still he fought. Still he stood. 47 minutes. That was how long it took for reinforcements to arrive. 47 minutes of constant combat. 47 minutes of holding the door against impossible odds. When the palace guards finally broke through, they found something they would never forget. Marcus was still standing. Barely. His body was covered with wounds. 9 new major injuries on top of everything else. He should have been dead. Any other creature would have been dead, but he was still standing. Still between Lily and the door. Still ready to fight. Around him lay the bodies of 17 Scalaria assassins. The other 12 had retreated when they heard reinforcements coming. They had failed their mission. Lily was untouched. Not a single enemy had gotten past Marcus. It is over, a guard said carefully. You can rest now. Marcus turned his head slightly. His eyes found Lily. She was safe. She was alive. Only then did his legs give out. He collapsed to the floor, finally allowing his body to feel the damage it had taken. Lily ran to him. She held his hand, not caring about the blood. "Stay awake," she begged. "Help is coming. Stay awake." Marcus looked up at her. His lips moved, forming words she could barely hear. "Told you I would protect you." His eyes closed. Medical teams rushed in. They carried him away, working frantically to save his life. Princess Lily stood in her ruined room, covered in her guardian's blood. Tears ran down her face. For the first time she understood what humans really were, not monsters. Guardians, protectors who would walk through death itself to keep their promises. And Marcus had almost died to keep his. The medical bay of the palace was the most advanced in the empire. Machines could heal wounds that would kill any ordinary creature. Doctors from a dozen species worked there, masters of medicine and biology. None of them had ever treated a human before. Marcus lay on a white bed surrounded by machines and screens. His body was covered with bandages and tubes. The doctors had worked for 3 days straight to save him. They had rebuilt damaged organs. They had replaced lost blood. They had sealed wounds that went down to the bone. He should be dead, the head doctor told Emperor William. Any other species would be dead. His injuries were beyond survival, but his body, it fights. Every cell fights to heal. Every system fights to recover. I have never seen anything like it. William stood at the window, watching his daughter through the glass. Lily sat beside Marcus's bed. She had not left since they brought him there. She held his hand and talked to him, even though he could not hear her. "Humans call it the will to live," William said quietly. "They can survive things that should kill them simply because they refuse to die. It is more than will," the doctor replied. "It is biology. Their bodies are built to survive damage. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day, so they became almost impossible to kill." The doctor shook his head in amazement. "I believe he will recover fully in about 2 weeks." 2 weeks, William turned in surprise. Those injuries would keep a Valari in bed for 6 months. Humans heal fast. The doctor almost smiled. Another gift from their death world. Inside the medical bay, Lily talked to the sleeping human. She told him about her day. She told him about the investigation into the assassination. They had found the traitor who sold the security codes, a jealous noble who wanted to hurt her father by killing her. She told Marcus about his sister, Emma. The palace had sent a message to Earth, explaining what happened. Emma had sent back a recording. She was crying in it. She begged the doctors to save her brother. She said Marcus was all she had. Lily had watched that recording 7 times. "You have a wonderful sister," she said softly. "She loves you very much. You need to wake up so you can see her again someday." On the 14th day, Marcus opened his eyes. Lily was there when it happened. She saw his eyes move, then slowly open. They found her face and stayed there. "Princess," he said. His voice was rough and weak. "Are you hurt?" Lily felt tears forming in her eyes. After everything he had suffered, his first thought was still about her safety. "I am fine," she said. "Because of you, you saved my life." Marcus nodded slightly. Then he tried to sit up. "What are you doing?" Lily pushed gently on his chest. "You need to rest. You almost died. Humans do not rest well." Marcus managed a small Smile, if we lie still too long, we get nervous, old instinct on earth, lying. Still for too long meant something would eat you, despite everything. Lily laughed. It was a strange feeling. Laughing in this place of medicine and recovery, but it felt good. You are incredible, she said. The doctors say your injuries should have killed you. Any other creature would have died, but you survived. I had a reason to survive. Marcus looked at her with those eyes that she once found cold. Now she saw warmth there. I made a promise to protect you. Dying would have broken that promise. Lily was quiet for a moment. She thought about everything that had happened since this human arrived in her life. The fear she felt at first, the slow understanding that came later, the terror of the assassination, and the miracle of her survival. I begged my father not to choose you, she finally admitted. That first day after the tournament, I went to his chambers and begged him to pick someone else, anyone else. I was terrified of what you were, a creature from a death world, a species that treats war like art. That scares even our engineered monsters. Marcus nodded. He did not seem offended or hurt. He simply waited for her to continue. My father said something that night. He said my enemies would fear you more than I ever could. He said that fear would keep me safe. Lily reached out and took Marcus's hand. He was right, but he was also wrong. Wrong how? Lily squeezed his fingers gently. I do not want a guardian I fear. I want a guardian I trust, someone who protects me, not because they are commanded to, but because they choose to. She met his eyes. You fought for 47 minutes with wounds that should have killed you. You stood in that doorway and refused to fall, not because my father ordered you. You did it because you gave me your word. Marcus was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. Humans protect the things they care about. I told you this once. The things we value become part of us. Hurting them hurts us. Losing them breaks us. He paused. You are no longer just my assignment, princess. You are someone I care about, someone worth protecting. Lily felt warmth spread through her chest, a feeling very different from the cold fear she used to feel around this human. My father chose well, she said, and I am honored to have you as my guardian. Not because you are dangerous, because you are good. Marcus smiled, a real smile this time. It changed his face completely, making him look younger and gentler. Just doing my job, princess. No, Lily shook her head. It is much more than that. What you did was not a job, it was a gift. My life is your gift, Marcus. I will not forget that. She stood up but did not release his hand. Rest now. Recover your strength. When you are healed, we have much to talk about. I want to know more about Earth, about Emma, about humans. She smiled down at him. I want to know everything about the species that produces people like you. Marcus closed his eyes, still smiling. As you wish, princess. Lily watched him sleep. She thought about everything she had learned about humans, their violence, their wars, their terrible history, but also their loyalty, their sacrifice, their endless capacity to protect the things they loved. Humanity was not dangerous because they were monsters. They were dangerous because they would become monsters to protect those they cared about. They would walk through fire. They would break down walls with their bare hands. They would stand against impossible odds and refuse to fall. And now one of these humans had chosen to be her monster. Princess Lily of the Velar Empire looked at her guardian and felt something she never expected to feel. She felt completely, absolutely safe. It was the best feeling in the galaxy.